Who on camera that you cannot hear the song Who Let the Dogs Out. Today we're working with a dog that is deaf. He didn't even get to hear it. Unfazed. Have you ever had times when you wish you could just tune people out? I mean, who doesn't want to do that once in a while? We're going to be talking today about several different things, but one of them is David and Goliath in a way I've never heard it before. We're going to find out how can we find the courage that David had, and what purpose did he have? Because I have learned in life without purpose, you just fade away. You just live day by day by day. And we're excited about that teaching. It's going to be a little bit later on. We're also excited. We got a few more props coming up. Yeah. Come on in here. We got Stephanie Mills today, and with her, I believe this is your sister's death dog?
Yes.
I don't blame you. I wouldn't own one either. I mean, what can you teach us? You can sit down if you want to. I'm going to. About the difference in training death dogs.
They make you be better.
They make you be better.
It's not her fault she can't hear me.
Yeah.
So I had to learn ways to talk to her how she can hear me. She's got a very funny trait, and if she doesn't want to hear what I'm saying, she closes her eyes. She will literally...
Listen, I want to explain this as we go, because if you can't hear, then you're all visual. You learn by hand signals, body language, energy. All of this is how you communicate. And what she said, if she doesn't want to listen, she just shuts her eyes.
She's even when she's outside and not ready to come in and we call her in, she'll turn her head.
Avoidance is always before surrender.
And that's the thing that has struck me the most, is how often I act like the deaf dog.
Yeah. You know, I've even got Bible verses that I'm going to use a little bit later today, but Jesus talked about there will be people that hear but do not hear. They see, but they do not see. He said that's why he spoke in parables. And, you know, it's how do you get their attention when they're not looking at you?
It's hard. I used an e-collar, which is an electronic collar. A lot of people call them shock collars. They have more than one feature. They have a tone, which is useless for her. They have a shock, which is way too much for her. But they do have a vibrate setting. Yeah. And the vibrate setting, when she's off and she can't hear me call, I need her to know I'm talking to her, and I can use that vibrate.
I told Kathy, and I said it last week, the girl that's been here has some working border collies.
Yes.
And I always thought that would be the easiest dog in the world to train. And here's why. Border collies naturally lay down. So if you teach them to lay down really good, all you do is down. Every time you give them a command and they do it wrong, you tell them down. Then you give them a command and let them try, and down. So it's real easy to tell them wrong answer. Where, you know, I'm always talking to Kathy. We communicate about everything. My first thing, my watch has a vibrating feature. And I have it designed. It hasn't worked perfectly, but I tell my family that if I'm talking with somebody, I won't answer the phone. Right. But I will always read a text, because I get text on my phone. I can be talking to somebody, it'll vibrate, and I just look and see if it's an emergency and turn it back down, and my conversation keeps going. But I said that would be the way I would use to get just the vibration means look at me.
Right. And one of the number one ways that these dogs, deaf dogs, die is they get hit by cars.
Yeah,
because there is no recall.
Yeah.
You have to find different ways. So it's up to me to go above and beyond to make sure she's safe, because she doesn't know she can't hear.
Yeah.
She has no idea. She's just living her best life every single day. You want to see her live her best life? Let Erin come up here. That's her favorite human being in the whole world. She loses her mind. But the thing with her is that you'll see me wiggle the leash a lot. It's a lot like you with the horses, just a little wiggle, because she can't hear me say no. She can't hear me say she can't hear any of that.
Yeah.
So just little corrections before she starts to move, help her to settle.
Yeah, the vibration. Most of us understand if you're losing any one of your however many senses we have, smell, sight, speech, it magnifies the other ones. You know, we get better at the other ones. And when they can't hear, they get better at visual. They get better at feeling those little vibrations, I believe.
And she is a bulldog, so she's stubborn.
You know,
I might be stubborn too.
well, they always say we get dogs that match our personalities.
Well, that's my sister's dog. When she told me she was getting the dog, I thought, what are you thinking?
We actually, normally Beverly Hartley's here with us, and she has this little blue heeler puppy that's also deaf, and we were going to have her on stage today, but she texted me early this morning. Her husband is having tremendously severe back pains and had to go to the emergency room this morning, so that's why Beverly's not here. But
and she is not as well trained as she could be because I did the basic stuff and then I said, here. But she's doing really good.
well, I used to tell people about horses, about how well they're trained. I said, well, they stand still and walk. They're 90% trained because that's what people do 90% of the time. The rest of it's just be respectful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for me, to just have a dog patient
Right.
is huge for me. I remember years ago I was studying a trick horse trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And he said the hardest trick to ever train is for the horse to be still and focus on me. God is saying the same thing with people. The hardest thing he can do is get us to be still and focus on him. Because that's when the communication really starts. Yeah.
For her, if she's not looking at me, she doesn't know what I want.
Right. Yeah.
And it's the same thing when we take our eyes off God. We have no idea what he's asking
Yeah.
of us or trying to bless us with.
Yeah. So what's your toys you got there?
So for her, I have a martingale collar on. What that does is it acts a little bit like a choke chain, but it doesn't actually go the full way.
Mm-hmm.
I need to know that no matter what, she can't get out of this collar when we're in public. Because if she does, she's going to get hurt because she has no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Life is a party to her. She knows no fear other than a water bottle. The other thing with a deaf dog, you have to be really careful in how you correct them because you can overdo it just with your energy alone. There are times if I've gotten up to go across the room really fast that have terrified her because of what we have not had her since she was a puppy. I believe she was 4 when you got her? 3. So she had been through 3 or 4 homes by that point. So she had a lot of baggage, just like we do. So I've had to undo a lot of what was done to her. She still is not over you bring out a squirt bottle right now and she's going to have a panic attack still.
Okay, explain the reason why.
Whoever had her before used a squirt bottle anytime she was doing what was wrong, they would squirt her. Well, all she knows is she's living life and then all of a sudden something's hitting her because she can't hear that they're saying no. She can't hear that's wrong. She can't hear. So their method was to do something physical to her. She doesn't need that. She can't understand that. She just understands the fear of it. One of my favorite tools to use.
So we're saying she doesn't apply the punishment with the crime.
Correct. She just knows that something's all of a sudden, and even giving her a bath is traumatic for her. Still. We've made some successes recently, but she literally goes into a panic attack. It's like somebody with PTSD. Mm-hmm. Some traumas are more easily to overcome, and for her, this is one that has given her some PTSD.
Yeah.
The same regards, I have to be really careful. Oh, I don't have my prong collar. A lot of people use the prong collars, the bite collars. Mm-hmm. In the right hands, those are great tools. In the wrong hands, they're completely ineffective. What it does is it has little prongs, and when the dog, when used right, it's a quick bite. It's a quick bite. It's like what the mother wolf would do to the puppies when they're misbehaving. They would get a quick bite. What people do wrong is and she's probably not going to let me do it. She's not. So I'm going to use Skipper's arm. So the prong collar should bite and release, bite and release. When it's done wrong, Skip, pull into my arm. He can pull into that all day long, and then I have no power with that.
Yeah.
It's useless. And you can actually cause holes in dogs' necks. I've seen lots of trauma from that. In the right hands, they're great. I, a lot of times, don't recommend them to people because I know they're not in the right hands.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've seen that with
yeah.
some of the horse things.
One of the things, God created animals different. And when you get the breed of dog that is made for hunting, they get hurt. They get pain. You do not correct them with pain. If you've ever seen a pit bulldog roll his eyes back in his head, he is not going to turn loose. No matter how much pain. The more pain you do, the more they just zone out. So a bite collar in the wrong dog does nothing.
Yep. This is a martingale. This is similar to what she's wearing now. This one just has a chain on it. So it tightens, and it makes it so she can't slip out. I think they were originally used for greyhounds because they have such a slender neck and then a slender head. Regular collars just slip off, but they're a great, great tool.
How many ever had a dog get out of their collar? That's exactly what this is talking about. It keeps them from getting out. If it's one size fits all, boy, they get just right. It's gone. But this one, it can get tighter when needed be, and then automatically loose.
This is very similar. It's a choke chain.
Yep.
You're correct, it releases. Correct, it releases. Can't tell you how many people put them on wrong. I can correct and release.
Yep.
They put them on upside down,
Yep.
and you correct and choke. It doesn't let go.
Yep.
So it's very important when you're teaching someone that you teach them the right tools.
The
You do it all the
release,
time.
yes.
And it's that release, because if they never get the release, then you don't. This is the worst thing, in my opinion, for any dog ever. This is a harness. Correction. If you own a miniature dachshund, use a harness, because they have really bad back problems. But they're about 13 pounds. I can pick up 13 pounds. For that dog, I'm going wherever she wants. You just made her a pulling machine.
Yeah.
And I'm going to dog ski wherever she wants to go. I'm not a fan. A lot of people use them, and that's fine. I'm not a fan.
Well, it actually gives dogs more power to pull against you, because it would be like a breast collar on a horse. Then that horse is pulling with his chest. That's the same way as these. The only one of these that I kind of liked was for real little dogs, and they actually had a handle on the top where you just reach down and pick them up. You know, that's like their own little vest they had, and they just picked them up.
Yep.
But
This is probably one of my favorite things. It's just a little slip noose. I have them in my car. It's thin. The wider the collar, the more power you give the dog. The thinner, and it needs to be in the right place. If I put this at the base of her neck, she has all the power. If I put it here,
right behind her ears.
right behind her ears. If you ever go to see dog shows, she will go everywhere I want her to with very little effort. I mean, part of it is she's trained, but part of it is the placement.
We talk about it all the time with horses. You get these horses that pull on you with a big, wide, thick, comfortable halter. Or I use a rope halter with knots, and it doesn't do that. Okay, let's see whose that is. We got a horn blowing on the camera. We're just going to try to wait this out a second. There you go. But the type of collar, the one I used the very first week was a fish stringer.
Yep.
Just a little tiny rope with a ring in it will give you more control than any of this wide stuff will.
And that's what you see in the dog shows. When they have those giant dogs and they're running around like this, it's a tiny little wire. And it doesn't hurt them, but they feel it a whole lot quicker. It's clearer communication.
Working with deaf dogs, I was a huge fan of Caesar Milan. In fact, I told horse people, don't watch horse trainers, watch Caesar, because it's all about becoming their leader. And people, that's what we're about, is God becoming our leader. And that's what it's all about. And we're just making illustrations of how that happens, that we give leadership to God, and this is just illustrations. But one of the things that Caesar says is it's exercise, discipline, and then affection. How many people get that backwards? And we give affection first. Don't raise your hands. But that's what comes natural, is we get them because we want to love something. We want something to love us back. But that takes away a lot of the leadership qualities.
Definitely.
But is that the same for the deaf
Absolutely.
dogs?
Even more important, I think.
Okay.
And across the board, one of the questions that you had asked last week was the percentage of people that get the wrong dog. I think she was very generous in her answer because I feel like it's a lot higher. I think that's why we have the bites.
Yeah.
People loving their dog. And I have a house full of dogs. When I tell you that I can manage dogs, I have males, Anatolian Shepherd, a South African Boerboel, and 3 Dobermans. And they all live because they know that I'm the one in charge. My daughter laughs because if they're acting up and roughhousing in the house, all I have to do is walk around and they're like, oh, let me go sit down. Now, they don't do that for my sister and they don't do that for my daughter because I'm the one who's in charge.
Kenny, you're going to agree with this one. Buck, you too, maybe. We were talking, she last week talked about some dogs just don't get along. When I'm day working and I take my dogs and Kenny takes his dogs and Bucks takes his dogs, they're going to get along. Or I will at least say they are not going to fight. It's just unacceptable. You can't do it. And we're talking a lot of male testosterone. But because they're working, hard-working dogs. But years ago, they were worked a lot and they were kind of tired. They wanted to lay down underneath your horse and get in the shade. So there were some differences, but...
I have the same issues with a couple of mine. Sully, my black and tan Doberman that I bring a lot, he's very well behaved. He knows when that leash is on, we're working. And so when he's one of the ones roughhousing, I just put his leash on and he walks around. He's like, oh, this means I'm working. Let me go sit down somewhere.
Yeah.
Totally changes that mindset. And I'm okay if they roughhouse outside.
Yeah. See,
But
that was
they're
our
too
deal. We didn't change leashes. You know, if we had a collar on one, I didn't want a collar on my dog.
No.
You don't ever want to see a cow stick her horn through the collar. It is not a good sight. But sometimes you got to put a collar on them so it's got your name and phone number so you can find them when they get lost.
At home, my dogs don't wear collars.
Yeah.
When you have a 1-dog home, or maybe a 2, if they don't play a lot, it's okay. I've seen incidents with a friend. It happened with my sister. It wasn't as severe. The dogs were wrestling. The jaw went under the collar. For my friend, what happened is the one dog broke the other dog's neck and broke its jaw so bad that it couldn't be repaired. She lost 2 dogs just because they were playing.
Yeah.
So I don't leave collars on my dogs at home, but I have a lot of dogs. 1 or 2 dog, it's okay. You run into then what happens if your dog gets out. I work really hard to make sure my dogs don't try to go out the front door.
Can I mess with you a little bit?
Absolutely.
Aaron, come over on this side behind the speaker, please.
She's going to lose her mind. She's already seen him once, though.
She's
so
going to lose her
be as
mind.
excited.
Okay. Now here's the difference, people. She is going to correct the thought. Where we wait, Aaron, no touch, no talk, no eye contact. You walk straight through. Don't trip on the cords on the other side.
Well, you're going to have to kind of go around because she's not going to know you're here. Stomp. She might.
You can go that way and just keep going.
Good girl.
All right, come back, Aaron. We're going to do this again. You can come from that way. All right, wait a minute. I want you to enter the house like you normally do with her.
No. Come say hi. So
This is good. She still took you over him.
she did, but I'm using one of her other senses. I have freeze-dried salmon.
Oh, you're cheating.
But that's the key with a deaf dog, is to find what they buy. You need them to buy in. You need them to buy in so that's because otherwise you're just not worth it.
It's how do I keep their focus? How does God keep your focus? through giving you everything you want. Oh, you just stay focused on God. No, it's when we're sick, when we're broke, when we're at our wits' ends, then we look at God. When we're in a tragedy, that's when we look, and this is it.
Yep.
What does it take to God to keep our focus all the time? The same as a dog. Be in love with him. Let God be the most important thing in your world and in your life.
And I don't give her very many of them because I don't want her to only work for that. Mm-hmm. But it does direct her back to me. Mm-hmm. Just like God uses those trials. I would love to tell you that I learned everything about God when I was coasting and life was great. But I've learned so much more through trials and learning to listen to that still small voice. And for her, she can't listen, but she can see. So I work hard. You'll see I move my hands around a lot just to bring her back to me. Mm-hmm. She'll get distracted, and then it's just about bringing her back.
And I think probably that's the biggest issue is when they're distracted, how do you bring them back? Mm-hmm. But what I see so many times, and of course it's really hard. Beverly's got this blue heeler puppy. Well, they're ADD anyhow. You know, so she has a terrible time keeping his attention. Mm-hmm.
And she's not found anything that he buys in for yet.
Yeah.
Treats don't do it. Toys don't do it. I think there's a little more to it. I was hoping she would be here today, but it's okay. I'll help
So
her.
what else do you have for us?
Well, she's actually making me look really good today, and I have not worked her in a really, really long time, but I set that foundation really strong when we did.
Yeah.
And I allowed no changes. Oh, good. Get distracted. So now I can call her Luna. Luna. She has no idea. I used my leash. She did good. I will also, like Caesar, boop. If we're walking down the road and she's not listening, I'm really good at boop.
Just to get their mind back. Mm-hmm. People, if we would look at difficulties in our life as God trying to get our mind back, we would do better. If we would look at any situation, I'll have to tell you this story that was told on me many years ago. I went through a stage in my life where I could get a flat tire and I blamed it on Satan. I mean, I was a Satan blamer. And I was a lot younger then, and I was telling one of the elders at the church, you know, hey, I just blame Satan. And he said, young man, Satan didn't do that. And I said, I know, but don't you hate to get blamed for something you didn't do? And when I blame him, I automatically look to God for the power to get through it. It was just what I used, anything that happened bad, I used it to refocus me on God. Mm-hmm. And what happens to us? Oh, we want to blame somebody. Normally, everything that goes wrong is somebody else's fault. Aren't we good at that? Instead of just, hey, Satan, get behind me. Mm-hmm. Lord, what are you trying to teach me? Where do we go from here? How can I learn more?
Be thankful in the trials.
Yeah, be thankful in the trials. Consider it pure joy as you go through trials and tribulations. It's in James 4.
I used to roll my eyes at that one.
But how do you, so I'm going to guess that when you don't have their attention and they're on leash, you just jiggle it.
Yes.
If they're not on leash,
I have to get in her line of sight, or I have to use something with it. So that's why the salmon is really good. It's not good for me. It's a very pungent smell. She can be sound asleep, and I can go stand near her with something that smells, and she will be, because that sense is so
I want to
great.
experiment a little bit. You don't know, but this stage is 12 sheets of plywood, really what they are. It's 12 different sections. I want to be on the same section she is, but I want to be further away from her. If you just move over. I want to see if she'll feel she can't hear.
Stay. Did you see her ear?
the vibration through the wood.
Good.
But there's got to be something, you know, and like you say, if they're deaf, the only thing you can do is go around and get in front of them where they can see you. And then you can start talking with your hands again. So is sign language anywhere close
Yes.
to deaf sign language?
Yes. We use a lot of the signs. No. No. Now she's confused. She doesn't know what she did wrong because this means no. So when she gets all wild and crazy, I still have to get in her line of sight, no, and stop. And boy, when she knows when I say stop, oh, I've really messed up.
Did you hear that? When you tell them no, it has to be no.
It has to be no every time. You have to be fair. If I'm no today, but tomorrow, the next day, no. The next day, she doesn't know what to expect.
Sometimes and maybe it doesn't work.
There are times that you can do maybe when you're in the process of training a new behavior because they're still learning it. But it's not really a maybe. It's a patience on my end while they figure out what I'm asking.
How do you feel about, I'm going to try to use audience words, cuddling a dog when he's in a bad mindset? And what I'm saying about, I don't know, they're scared of lightning.
Our natural reaction is you want to go hold them and love them and cuddle them. What you just did is tell them you need to be scared for your life. Because you're right, this is terrifying. You leave them alone. They can come sit with you. They can come sit beside you. Don't talk to them, don't pet them, don't love on them. Let them work through it. And I know many, many dogs. My sister had a beautiful German Shepherd that she adopted, and he was terrified. Well, when he came in terrified, all my other dogs, they stayed with us for a little while during the summer. They had come to visit, and this dog would panic during, we're in Florida, we have thunderstorms, and my dog started going, oh, wait, do I need to be scared? And I'm like, no, go sit down. So inadvertently, we reinforce the things we don't want. I have a little dog here with me now, a little healer. He has a really bad habit of every time the phone rings, he barks. Where he came from, it was reinforced. We've been working on not doing that, and inadvertently, it got reinforced because, sorry, trying not to out my family. He would get called over.
Yeah, we don't know what we don't know.
He would bark, 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 and oh no, come here. It's okay. Well, then he's like, bark, bark, bark.
Yeah, it's like
Because
a baby
he
crying,
learns.
so you'll pick them up. Same thing. You know, if every time a baby cries, you pick them up, guess what? They're going to cry, so you'll pick them up. You know, one of the illustrations I want to make, and I'm going to make two of them so I can try to get everybody's visual. Most of you is not going to have a clue what I'm talking about, but I want you just to imagine in your mind you are in Vietnam. It's war, and there is a bunker with a machine gun in it. A bunker, they're caved in to where there's one little hole looking out. You can't shoot them hardly. And he's machine gunning everybody. And the whole platoon is cowered down. The leader, if the leader is scared, the platoon is scared. But when that leader says, you go that way, I go that way, let's charge them, then the platoon will follow you. But if you're scared, that dog's going to be scared. Another illustration, I don't ever plan on going to New York, but if I was walking the streets of New York, I'm as scared of New York as New York's are alligators, and I will swim with an alligator. But if you're in New York and my guide is scared, guess what? I'm scared too. But if my security team is with me, strut myself and say, ain't nothing to fear here.
Right.
And that energy is passed to our animals.
Right through this leash, right through a horse's lead rope.
Yeah.
The energy that you bring, and for her, when she first came, she was nervous. She came from a shelter. She can't hear the dogs barking, but she can feel that energy. She can smell those smells, and she was on edge. And it takes that. Even if I'm scared, and I'll see a lot of people, they get their dog and they rap and they rap and they rap and they're ready. You just told your dog to be on guard.
Yeah.
It's about to be bad. So they're either one, going to be terrified, or they're going to become aggressive. Sounds completely counterintuitive to let your aggressive dog have a loose leash, but a short leash. But don't wrap it around and send that fear that you already have because, oh, my dog's going to be bad. I got to get him short.
Yeah.
You just told that dog to be bad.
Yeah, that's good.
And especially her, she feeds off energy so quick. If I want to wake her up, very, very blessed with her. She does not have a mean bone in her body. There are a lot of deaf dogs that you have to wake up very carefully. You have to stomp on the floor before you get there. You have to tap on the cage because they're going to react because they don't know you're there and you just startled them out of a sleep. Imagine if you're sound asleep and somebody grabs you. That's how a lot of people get bitten because they're not acclimated to what's going on in their environment. And I have to go the extra mile for her. It's not her job because she doesn't know she's deaf. She can't be anything other than deaf. It is who she is. She's watching the kids. Perfect example. She's not listening. She knows I'm talking to her. She just ignored me. I don't accept ignoring me.
Yeah.
I wasn't mean. It didn't hurt her. I bumped her with my foot. I could bump Skipper and it wouldn't hurt. Yeah. I'm not trying to hurt her. If I hurt her, she's for sure not going to listen to me. So if you use pain in training, you might get compliance for a little bit, but you don't get trained. You get somebody who's afraid and is going to listen for fear. But the moment that that's really put to the test, you have no control.
What about if there's a situation where you're telling them never?
It looks really bad. It doesn't hurt them at all. But let me tell you, they think they're going to die. I'm not hurting them at all. I'm not. But they think I'm going to kill them. And it's all just with energy. I don't physically hurt them at all. They can take a lot more than I can dish out, especially the big dogs. I'm not talking about some, but let me tell you. Yeah. And I find that more little dogs are nastier than big dogs, so people are like, it's a little dog. It's a little dog. I have a South African Boerboel. I have two of them. They're about 145 pounds. One of them, in play, impaled himself with a stick right through here. I had to take him to the vet. The vet complimented me so much because my dog knew he needed to stand there and be still. I held his head, not hard, I just held. And he stood and let him examine him, everything he needed to do. He offered me a job at the end of it because my dog knew to listen to me. It hurt, it wasn't fun, but he knew that I said be still. And every time we had to go in because he kept pulling stitches because just of the area, I got compliments every time because of how well behaved he was, even for them, because they need to know. You can't have a 145-pound dog that's not going to listen. You can't. I can't stop him.
Yeah. I stayed in trouble quite a bit when my children were young because I had this deal. It's part of my dog training too. If I'm on my horse, you're sitting in a saddle. They were never allowed to go past my foot. They could get even with it. But as soon as they got past it, I dropped something on them. Now, it may be my whip that I used for noise, but I just dropped, the same thing you're doing.
Yep.
But I'm not going to say get back every time they get out of line, because that's a never.
Right.
If you use words on a never, if you don't use the words, it's okay.
Well, the reality is we use too many words when we're training anyway.
Yes.
They don't speak English.
Yeah.
You may talk to them and they may look at you all cute. They have no idea what you're saying. They're feeding off your energy.
I liked your comment because it agreed with mine. Years ago, John Lyons was one of the first Christian horse trainers that was out there very publicly about his religion. And he did a little magazine called The Perfect Horse. And he did an article about a horse biting a person. I mean, really biting. If a horse bites you, they can pick you up and shake you and throw you down. I mean, it's unbelievable the strength they have. But he said, if a horse bites you, whatever you have in your hand, you try to kill them for 3 seconds.
I love John Lyons.
What he's saying is mentally, you want them to think, I will kill you over this. You never, ever bite. It's body language. It's that get loud, get big. He said, as long as you don't hit them in the eyes, you ain't going to hurt them.
And it's the same thing. You have that time, because if you miss your timing, it's like a teenager. You know, you let them get away with missing curfew for 5 minutes. The next time it's 10 minutes. The next time they might not come home. It's the same thing with them. They learn, they're very smart, and they adapt to their environments very well. They're very forgiving, but they do require, and they deserve for us to be fair. They deserve for us to be consistent.
Yeah. I'm just going to try this one time. Could you text Paige and see if I could have Lenny and Abe for 2 minutes? She probably won't answer her phone. She don't even answer it when she's not teaching. But that's another story. It might be better if we send a messenger, because she won't answer the phone.
I think they're on the way.
Just ask them if we can use Abe and Lenny for 2 minutes. But because it's a demonstration of when you get a foundation, you've got it.
Right.
One of the other things that I did when my children were little is if they got ahead of me in a parking lot. Now, I said parking lot. If they're going to run, they're like a deaf dog. You holler and they look back and keep running. That's how children get run over. So my get in front of me in a parking lot was a never. So when they went by me, I just thumped them in the back of the head. Now, I stayed in a lot of trouble over that, but it worked. But in the meantime, I learned different ways. But, you know, keeping my children safe was more important than what people think. You know, I had children that grew up in the country. They ran everywhere. We didn't have air conditioner until they were about 8 years old. They stayed outside on the move. And there's times when you got to have that absolutely all the time.
We grew up out in the country in Alabama, and we had this whole area we could go play. But my mom could put her fingers in her mouth and do a whistle that would about rupture your ears.
All I'm going to do is this. You watch.
And we knew that meant come home. And that meant come home right now, not in a few minutes when I'm finished playing my game. That meant right now.
Yeah. So we're talking about come on up on stage, kids. You get to meet my grandchildren, Abe and Lenny. They're quite a team. When Abe was growing up, we were at the fairgrounds all the time, and I can remember when Abe got big enough to look out the window, he said, "Papa's house." That's how much we went to the fairgrounds. Okay, we're going to go over there. So I didn't have to tell them to hold my finger. They knew to hold my finger. How many people, now this is just me, I don't care whether you do it or not, but how many people hold them? You took all the responsibility away from them. You see, God is giving you responsibility to stay connected to Him. So when I stick my fingers out, that's the way we go. There's times when we're in a parking lot and there's a lot of cars, I just get out of the car and stick my fingers out. I love you too. Good job. You can go back to class now. Be sure you get all the way back to class. But that's just an illustration about what a foundation looks like. I taught that. Lenny was a little bit hard when she was learning to walk. But I was always teaching them to walk, going down the sidewalk, hold Papa's finger and we'll walk until you can walk without me.
Behavior modification is behavior modification, whether you're doing it with children, adults, dogs, horses. It's behavior modification. We learn better with positive reinforcement, but sometimes there's a negative consequence.
Tell me just a little bit about your job.
I work at a school for children with autism. I have I have a class of 13 second and third graders.
So it's natural for you to work with anything that's a little difficult.
Yes. I do behavior modification all day long.
Yeah.
And it's not, I had somebody said, "Oh, so you're really good at manipulating people." I thought, oh, I suppose if I was a horrible person, I could be. But it's, when I do the things that I do to encourage her to make good choices, it's for her safety.
Yeah.
So the things that I do with my children, it's the same thing for their safety,
Yeah.
for when they go home, for when we go on field trips, because we go on field trips. And if I don't do my job right, somebody gets hurt.
I got a couple of Bible verses that go along with this. Matthew 13:17. Jesus said, "This is why I speak to them in parables, because seeing they do not see, and hearing they do not hear, nor do they understand." Do we know people like that? That you can speak the truth to them and they do not hear you. You speak truth, you show them truth, and they are blinded. And of course, here's where it comes from. We read this a couple of weeks ago in 2 Corinthians 4:4. It says, "The God of this world," who is that? Satan. Satan is the ruler and the god of this world. Look it up. This is, "has blinded the minds of unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light and the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God." See, they can't see or hear because Satan has blinded them. Chances are you're not going to change them. We got to focus on the people that are just in the middle, that are still reachable.
You told me one time, I had been talking with a friend for years and years and years, and it never ever was a conversation with him that he ever once, in many, many years, ever asked me how I was. It was always about him. Now, granted, he had a lot of health things going on, but in that, that's where that little dog came from. He passed away. But before, you told me to wipe the dust from my feet. And there are those people in our lives that we have to wipe the dust from our feet. And I'm also going to say that there are some dogs that are so broken from the things that they've been through that the kindest thing we can do is give them peace.
Well,
I thankfully have only ever had one that I encountered.
yeah.
But it does happen.
There's some
we gotta
dogs, some horses, and some people that are above my pay grade.
Yep.
It's just simple as that. You know, somebody else has more knowledge than I do to help that particular animal or person.
Right. We're only to be there for a time, do the best
Yeah.
we can.
Yep.
And if we're not getting anywhere, we need to let somebody else step
Yeah.
in and not let our pride get in the way.
Yeah. All right, how about a hand for Stephanie and her deaf dog that can't hear?
So if you want her to be excited, Luna, hey, yay, that's
Oh.
a girl. Yay.
All right, if you'll
Thank
go
you very
that way
much.
so you don't trip over
Yes.
cords. I want to share with you just a few minutes that we got left about David and Goliath, and I want to go into it in maybe a way that you haven't seen it. I want you to get a picture. Now, you can't see the same picture I am because this stage is in sections, but you might use this walkway. And the fight of David and Goliath was actually in the valley of two mountains. If you want to know the name of them, talk to JP. But you got this one side that are Philistines, and they're evil, godless people. Now, I can go on, but they follow false gods. Then you've got Israel that follows the one true God, the creator of the world. So the whole battle is going to be fought down here, but they're up on the mountainsides. Now, a few of the things that I researched and didn't know about. It's pretty common. They think David was probably 15 years old. Now, how do you arrive at that? Well, the military age was 20. He had 3 brothers in the military, and he had 5 brothers that were not in the military because they were too young, and David was the youngest. So chances are he might have been about 15. So that was his age. The average height of a soldier back then was 5'8". They believed that Goliath was 9'9". Okay, 5'8", 9'9", a 4-foot difference. I mean, that's like I'm 6 foot, 4-foot difference would be somebody that's knee high. So that's why nobody wanted to fight this giant. His armor, when you break it down to weights and measures we can understand, was 125 pounds that he carried in battle. The head of his spear weighed 15 pounds. This guy was huge. That's why nobody wanted to fight him. And the whole deal was, okay, I tried to look up numbers. How many people was in this army? When I read the story of David and Goliath, I don't see a number of how many was there. But I did find another battle, and Saul had 300,000 men. Now, I've got to think that Saul had all of his men at this battle too, because this was a battle to who's going to take control of Israel. Because the Palestinians, they want to take over. And the whole deal of the story of David and Goliath is, rather than 600,000 of us fighting and blood, guts being everywhere, why don't you just send your best man and just me and him will fight? Winner take all. For 40 days, morning and night, Goliath would come out and mock God and say, send me your man and let us settle it right here. And if you win, we will surrender. But if I win, you surrender to us. You follow our fake gods. That's what the whole battle was about. Was about the godly and the godless. Now we're talking about America. Because that's the same battle we're in today, is the godly and the godless. We got one party wants to put Bibles into school, and we got another party that wants to put drag queens into school. So I want you to draw some similarities between where America is today and the story of David and Goliath. Did you know that let me rephrase how I word that. Only one person in the Bible is talked about more than David, and that was Jesus. I could do a sermon every week on a story of David, because David had a lot of stories. But that's not where I want to go. I want to focus on this battle. I want you to draw into how can this 15-year-old shepherd boy, his daddy sent him to the battlefield with goodies for his other 3 sons. Now, I don't know how he found them amongst 300,000 people. That's not part of the story. But his daddy just sent him there to bring provisions for his other sons. I'm sure it wasn't a life of luxury with 300,000 people camping there. But when David gets there, he hears this giant mocking his God. What would you do when people mock your God? I can tell you, I've just shook my head, turned around, walked away from them. But what gave Jonathan the courage to fight the giant? Better yet, what did David have that convinced Saul that he could beat the giant? Do you have any idea the responsibility that was on that teenager's shoulders? If I win, Israel wins. If I lose, Israel loses. That's an awesome responsibility for anyone, no less a 15-year-old child that guards sheep. But what was it that gave David the courage to go up against a giant? You've heard me say it over and over, and people, this is the greatest illustration I've ever had. God is always preparing you for the future. Everything I do with the horse is preparing them for the future. Everything you go through is preparing you for the future. David gets up there and says, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine blaspheming my God?" You know, uncircumcised meant he was ungodly. The Philistines had this way of, when they said Philistine, you knew they're bad. They're ungodly. When you take God out of the equation, what do you have left? Oh, I can tell you, you've got all these false gods, which I believe are angels. Remember when we talked a few weeks ago about 1/3 of the angels were kicked out of heaven, and how many is 1/3? Remember, we looked up in Revelations, it said, how many angels? 10,000 times 10,000 is 100 million angels. So he took out 33 million angels scattered on the earth doing their thing. And I think that's where all these false gods come from. The idols, we call them, of Baal and Ezra. The world is full of them, but you're on this side, anti-God. Oh, the God of pleasure, the God of fertility, the God of this and the God of that. Well, you're on this side, the God of the universe, the one we claim to serve. But how did a 15-year-old boy convince Saul that he could beat him? Because of his past. He said, I have killed bears and lions that came after the sheep. I am not scared of this Philistine. He will fall just the way they fell. You see, when you learn from your past, it'll give you power in the future. I want you to think about your past right now. I want you to think personally, each and every one of you, what is the worst thing you ever went through? There's times in my life I should be dead, but I'm not. Because God had a plan. When you think about the worst things in your life, I want you to understand you're only here because God chose for you to be here. And you are stronger than you think you are. You are mightier than you think you are. You have the capability of killing the giants in front of you, but you have to believe in yourself that you believe in God. Because our power comes from God. In Acts 1:8, it says, hey guys, don't leave until you receive the power of the Holy Spirit. And that's the power He wants us to work in. And there's so many times in life I talk to people, and it could be as little as, go vote. Oh, well, I don't know how. Well, learn. In fact, we'll help you. We're going to have you ballots and you just copy it. You know, it's pretty simple. One side is for God and one side is not. But are you going to be the David that stands in the middle ready to fight the giant? That's what this whole battle is about. There's a lot of people that are not taking sides. And when you don't take sides, it's up to chance who wins. God wants to know who is on my side. 300,000 soldiers would not fight because they didn't have the experience to defeat something bigger than them. They did not have the experience to kill a bear or a lion. David did. You see, when you go through these trials and tribulations in your life, look at it as experience. I am not scared of the future because I know what God has brought me through. In fact, got a scripture for that. It's in Revelations 12:11. It's talking about how do you defeat Satan. Listen to this. They overcame Satan by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. You see, each and every one of us has got a testimony that nobody can argue with. It's my testimony. When we go out and tell somebody, you need to start doing this or you need to stop doing that, that don't hold up in a court of law. But when I stand up and I say, let me tell you about the peace God has given me in the middle of the storm. I don't care what you believe. I have peace. Do you have that? Do you want peace? Then you got to do the same thing I do. You have to surrender your life to God. You have to be a David. You have to be willing to fight your giants. You have to have confidence of David. But you see, David didn't just have confidence because he killed the bear and the lion. He had a purpose. What was the purpose? God or no God? Who do you want ruling your land? You see, his purpose was freedom. Are we going to be free to serve a holy God, or are we going to be in bondage and in slavery to do whatever they want us to do? You see, David had these three things that I believe each and every one of us are capable of having. He had confidence because he had killed a bear and a lion. And I believe that if you think back, you will have the confidence of thinking, wow, when I look back at the things God has brought me through, though it was rough, I never dreamt I could get through it, but I did. There's times in our life when we feel like we're drowning, but we don't. I've been there. I've sold my life insurance policy to pay a bill. I've been homeless. I've been jobless. But when God is not finished with you, God is not finished with you, and you have the power of God to keep walking. And when you don't know how to walk, when you're in a tragedy, when you're in a conflict or you're in an emergency, I love the things that Vicki Hyatt's late husband told her. Just put one foot in front of the other. Just keep walking. Put one foot in front of the other and keep walking for God. Believe what God has said. Just as the blind dog, focus on God. Focus on His power. Look at the power that He used to bring you through your cancer, divorce, joblessness, bankruptcy. All the things that God has brought us through is made to strengthen us so we could fight the giants before us. 1 Samuel 17, David said to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight them." When we think about, do we have the same confidence we had? Do we have the same purpose that he had? Do we have the same will to go and fight the battle of freedom? Are we willing to go and fight for freedom? Or are we willing to speak up for the God of America? Are you willing to vote? Now, wait a minute. I know I'm preaching to the choir. You're going to vote. I'm challenging you. Who are you going to get to come to church next week, and who are you going to get to register to vote, and who are you going to help vote? It's not just about what you do, it's about what you do for your country, what you do for your family and your friends to bring them closer to God, to have an America that's going to still allow God to be spoken 50 years from now. You see, I truly believe that our next voting cycle is simple. If it goes one way, 50 years from now, God will be against the law and you will have no guns. They're going to take the commandment, the Constitution completely away. They've already reworded it and made it the way they want it. But if we vote godly, we will vote the power of God to bring America to its knees, to repentance, to be one nation under God again. And it's up to us to build the army. Not be the army, to build the army. We have to talk to our neighbors. We have to talk to our friends. We have to talk to our family. Oh, but they don't like politics. Stand up for God. The Bible says man will be against wife and brother against sister. If you don't love me more than you love your family, you're not worthy of me. Have the confidence that David had. Have the purpose that David had to fight for our freedom to choose God. Let's pray. Father God, I thank you that you gave us free will, but sometimes I wish you didn't. I like that deal on Facebook that says, sometimes I wish Jesus would show up and say, sit down, drink a cup of coffee, and I'll tell you what we're going to do. That's our heart's desire, but we get distracted and we go the other way, and we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, especially our family. But God, I pray that you will speak to the spirit that's in us and give us the boldness that David had, the courage that David had to fight for you. That God, it all starts with our relationship with you. Because when we're close to you, when we're one with you, we smile with confidence. Because he that is in me is greater than he that is in the world. We thank you, Lord, for what you're going to do in and through us. We just pray that we can feel your presence and we can change to your will, not our will, be done. And we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, special announcement. These plants have got to go. Where's the owner of the plants? Celia, where are you at? She's right down front. If you got any questions about them. She asked